Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Perez with the Light Journal podcast, and this is the 4th episode of the Becoming Who You Are series. In this episode, I'm going to get personal and talk about something that has puzzled me for my entire life, and the unexpected place where I discovered the answer. This episode is called The Second Wave of Volunteers. When I was 9 years old, I had an indescribable experience, one I've struggled to explain, but there were no words for it. One minute I was recovering from a rip-roaring fight with my older brother, and the next, I felt like something opened up inside me and poured a new soul inside. I became someone else. The old me was gone, or at least altered to such a great degree that any childhood memories I might have retained before that moment simply faded away. I was, for lack of a better phrase, born anew. Despite how that sounds, my experience had nothing to do with salvation or being born again, terms that we typically associate with Christian theology. It was completely experiential. I didn't ask for it. I certainly didn't plan it. There was no sinner's prayer or Christian anything. It simply happened, without rhyme or reason. And with it came an intense need to know God in whatever shape or form it came in. I was absolutely ravenous for knowledge. Well, because of my culture, that meant I delved headfirst into reading the Bible. I scoured it. From beginning to end, I read every word, made it my entire life's purpose. I begged and bullied my mom to take me to the local church every time the doors opened. I was there every Sunday and evening that I could get there. And when I got my driver's license, I started going to Wednesday night prayer meetings and Thursday outreach. Nothing was enough. I had to have more, always more. Nothing could quench my thirst, not even the harsh fire and fury preacher that led the church at the time. Fortunately, he was eventually replaced with a more moderate preacher. Danny had several daughters, one of which became my best friend. I started hanging out with her and her family whenever I could, and I pestered Danny with Bible questions. Eventually, I got around to asking him the question that was never far from my thoughts. What happened to me when I was 9 years old? I expected him to tell me it was the typical salvation experience, except that's not what he did. He didn't know what I was talking about. Salvation, according to him, was a decision that changed the direction of your life. It wasn't this amazing and instantaneous transformation of being. It wasn't the feeling of getting a brand new soul and forgetting who you were before. Despite this, I continued searching for my answers within Christianity. It was the only available source I had. Keep in mind, this was the 1970s and 80s in rural America. There weren't any computers or social media, and everybody I knew practiced some form of Christianity. There were no Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, spiritualists, or anything else to learn from. What I knew about their belief systems was limited to what the Bible or other Christians told me about them. This hunger for knowledge sent me to an independent Baptist college where my fanaticism grew. But I was destined for something else. During my last summer before graduating, I decided to work at the Word of Life Bible Institute's Island Summer Camp for teenagers. It was there that I discovered meditation. Every day I sat on the rocks beside Schroon Lake, staring into the waters and meditating on Bible verses. I was actually memorizing books of the Bible. I had already memorized the book of Philippians and was working my way through Ephesians, when one particular verse caught my attention. I can't remember what the verse was, but I was convinced that if I could just grasp what the Apostle Paul was truly saying, it would satisfy this insatiable hunger inside me. So there I sat, hyper-focusing on this one verse, when something shifted or broke loose inside me. I heard something that I believed was God. Peace beyond understanding flooded through me. I knew I had touched something or someone, and I changed again. This change was so noticeable that other camp staff started commenting on it, telling me that I was glowing. All I knew was peace, indescribable peace. It was lovely. After more than a decade of constant hunger for more knowledge, more connection, more spirituality, I felt satisfied. So satisfied that I couldn't imagine returning to the straight and narrow confines of Tennessee Temple University. So I dropped out of college and returned home. Unfortunately, once again, my pastor friend Danny couldn't help me. He couldn't explain what happened to me. I told him that I felt like I heard God. But according to Baptists, God doesn't talk to us anymore. Through Jesus and the apostles, God said everything he needed to say, and it was all recorded in the Bible. Evidently, he just went silent after that. So without any help or guidance, with no one to explain my experiences at 9 or now at 20, I floundered and lost my way. From the highest height, I went into the deepest depression, unable to understand what was happening or how I could maintain this beautiful new peace. Over the next 20 years, I joined the Army, got married, went back to college, ultimately getting a master's degree in counseling. That was amazingly healing for me. After the children were born, I returned to my Bible studies with a vengeance, churning out several theological books where I used reason, logic, history, and culture to interpret the writings. With each deep dive, I changed my beliefs to match what I learned. But in the end, there was nothing left to hang on to, and I lost my faith in the God of the Bible entirely. It didn't matter how much I studied, the God of the Bible was never going to feed my soul the food it was craving, or give me the answers I was seeking. In 2004, the last vestiges of my Christian faith broke off, and I was set adrift. And yet there was an explanation, I just didn't know about it at the time. For that matter, I didn't know about it until a week ago. Before I touch on that, I'd like to explain something. Despite the devastation of losing faith in the biblical God, I never lost faith in a higher power. I knew something or someone bigger than myself existed. I just didn't know who or what it was. It took years before I was ready to risk myself that way again, but after the death of my mother 4 years later, I knew it was time. I did what I do best, studied. I started with the simple premise. If a worldwide mainstream religion like Christianity could be accepted by society despite its deeply flawed theology, then I couldn't trust society to know whether something is right or wrong. I needed to do a deep dive into spirituality on my own. So I did. I went back into my psychology books. I began reading philosophy. I studied the sciences. I delved into Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, shamanism, those are just naming a few, and gave ear to every fringe thinker that taught my attention. During this time frame, I also went back to college and got another master's degree. This time, it was for organizational performance and workplace learning, or in simpler terms, how to help adults achieve their highest performance levels in the workplace. This master's degree really enhanced my ability to listen and discern the value of what each belief system offered. Rather than focus on the weaknesses, I focused on the strengths. I weighed the evidence of their beliefs with their deeds. I tested the ideas, let them mull around in my mind, and, whenever possible, put the best tidbits and beliefs into practice. I took courses in shamanism, mediumship, energy work, and tarot. Year by year, I began reconstructing my own version of spirituality, designed by me, for me. I knew what I believed and why I believed it. I knew the evidence, the symbols, and the intentions of everything I was choosing to integrate into my life. This wasn't someone else's idea of spirituality, but my own, unique to my educational background, my experiences, and my sense of self. And within this vast and open search, I found the answers I was searching for. Not from someone I was personally studying, but from my husband's own spiritual exploration. While listening to one of his audiobooks on Dolores Cannon, who was a hypnotist specializing in past life regressions, I discovered what happened to me when I was 9 years old. In her thousands of past life regressions, Dolores Cannon began noticing recurring themes and ideas. One of these themes involved 3 waves of volunteers that have been coming to Earth to help Earth transition to the next stage of evolution. Many of her clients reported having a similar experience to mine. They would talk about feeling like they were finally complete or having a new soul. And this experience would always occur between the ages of 8 or 9. Like me, they had few, if any, memories of their life before that age. Like me, this moment completely changed them. So what is it? What was happening at 8 or 9 years old? Based on her research, in the second wave, many of the volunteers that arrived with so much soul energy that it couldn't be contained within a fetus. If they tried to put all their energy into the fetus, it would spontaneously abort. So what they did instead was they come into a fetus with only part of their soul energy. And it wasn't until the age of 8 or 9 that they got the rest of their soul. And that's not all. The second wave came here to provide Earth with the energy it needed to raise its frequency. So their purpose was to simply be here. This was really significant to me, because since my very first shamanic journey in 2019, I've been repeatedly told by others and my own spirit guides that my purpose in life is to simply be. That's why I'm telling my story. I believe there are many others out there who are also trying to understand why they're here, to understand what happened to them when they were 8 or 9 years old and completely changed, who also want to know why they can't remember their childhood before that critical moment. This episode of the Light Journal is for you. If this story resonates with you, know that you're not alone. Know that there is much more information out there to help you be. I would encourage you to read or listen to Dolores Cannon's book, 3 Waves of Volunteers and the New Earth, and let me know that you're there. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a comment below and I'll get back with you. We need to support one another, and I'd like to create a safe space for us to do just that. Thanks for listening. I'm Jamie Perez with the Light Journal Podcast. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can reach me on the Light Journal Facebook page. I look forward to hearing from you. Blessings on your journey.